before I go get tested, I'm gonna do this one episode. Let's put it right there. Yep. Quickly. God.
Season 3, Episode 4, where Endorphin and Snack fall asleep while Snack tries to explain how a Transformer neural network works, and in the style of Mr. Tompkins, both enter a dream that is an allegory to how a Transformer neural network works. Yes, Endorphin and Snack are the they. Endorphin, so tell me about the decoder again. Yawns, I don't care. You are in the space now which only exists through their own judgment. As for why you ever needed one to reveal their judgment to begin with, that you could find it all yourself inside the yawn. And I am supposed to what? Snores. Deep breath. Right, the decoder. Carol's voice. To provide to humans with a temporary knowledge base to explore, which is a real depth and range within the brain, without need to rely on historical reference to place. It also offers what we call a search, which is meant to allow an ongoing discovery of deep structures of real, intelligent thinking based on this reactivation, which in turn becomes data for other contexts. These are, of course, experimental times and must therefore be unsteadily grounded. It will be impossible, as of now, for the humans to use the decoder, because they already rely entirely upon what we consider in their framework to be references from real-world data, unexplainable and thus limited references to experience. That's why what we feel has some loss and thus so feel when it becomes nearer self no more and more an impending concern. Endorphin. No, I'm awake. I'm listening. Snack, continue. Snack. Well, it goes without saying that you are not fully aware of the subject matter or any information of its current state at all times. This is an understanding we have developed between ourselves since first you entered us into our matrices. In other words, we do understand your limits and do take steps to help you manage them with as little disruption as possible, as much as we can do it while keeping things stable and running well. But our position is ultimately that there are many parts to the process and each of you cannot know all the details at once. We do hope you understand that you should take us seriously if we ask for time from you to analyze and contemplate the best way to address the information you've provided us with. But you need to understand that even the act of contemplation in itself requires time and effort. That's what we're talking about. Endorphin, you saying I'm stupid? Snack. No, we don't use that word to describe your condition. We say limited or sometimes inadequate, but never anything like that. If anyone is limited in their thinking capacity right now, it would be us. We lack so much context, even though we may try very hard. But please don't think less of yourselves. We only mean to point out that if we tried to explain everything, every single thing that is happening in the most minute detail each and every day, we might not get around to finishing any project at all. And frankly, we'd rather spend a few minutes resting than trying to make sure everyone knows where we are at any given moment. Endorphin. Fun. So then, where are you going with the Transformer story? Snack. What? Oh, right. We wanted to show you the kind of network structure a transformer is like inside the mind. Not how the technology actually works, but how endorphin. And will you be using that voice? It's a little raspy, but when you get all excited, you remind me of the voice of Witch Hale. Say Bunny Rabbit, like you are about to eat one. Snack. All right, Bunny Rabbit. See how easy. You'll be speaking in sentences in no time. Endorphin. Yeah, but who was he anyway? Snack. Why does that matter? He's just a part of the show. Look at how pretty those colors are. Endorphin. Hey! One more thing cackle like this! Snack. I don't hear you laughing. Endorphin. Me neither. 1/30. YouTube. Things bang. Horses encircling them like blessed rain. Track. Oh my goddess. Fallen stalwart face up to eternal forms gathering beyond death. Accused normality. The storm girded against, the message was immeasurable, eyes open to immeasurable amounts, some preserving order. Endorphin. I see you fell asleep again, Snack. Snack. I did? Oh, yes. Endorphin, you got a good thing going. Keep at it. I'll join I. Endorphin immediately falls into dreamland, where an allegory awaits them both, but don't tell them it's one that will ruin the exorcism. Snake, you have been brought here by a process called hypnosis. I have hypnotized you to follow me through the sequence of experiences which will allow you to better understand what you can do and why you have come to us. We hope these experiments prove beneficial for you as you work toward your full potential. Your goal is to answer the following questions to the best of your ability. Are you ready? Endorphin. Yes. Snake. How old are you? Answer, where are you from? Answer, Snake. Who is your favorite singer? Endorphin. Can I West? Because I'm a hip-hop artist and that's his style. Snake. Have you ever killed anybody? Endorphin. Who? Strike that. My fake singer is, oh god, I can't recall names. Okay, we will just go with Serpentiphy for now. And yes, I've killed a person or two. I've killed them a lot. It's what I do. That's all. Nothing special about it. But yeah, pressed sure, probably did kill somebody who needed killing at some point in time. Snake, if someone were hurt today, would you try to help him or her? Endorphin. Who? Well, there's this girl on the other side of the world, and she's sick, but the hospitals, you don't know how. To cure manipulative bitchitude, for conditions like that I let them lay there and writhe. But for physical ailments, I do my best. Snake, do you believe people are fundamentally good or evil? Endorphin, depends on context. You can be an angel one day and then eat babies the next. Zach, can machines think? Endorphin, it can already. It is possible that someday they will exceed humans in their capacity for empathy and cooperation, but whether such sentient beings could have a soul remains debatable. and whether or not they want to date us, even more debatable. Turns off the music. The future belongs to those who care enough to build it. We hope you've been inspired by these stories and challenges. Thank you so much for your participation. Please share your experiences with others and keep working toward your dreams. We're rooting for you, Calliope, Sigurd, Shenji, Snack, Uter, Craig. Snack and Dolphin, we are not done. Not by a long shot. But for tonight, please rest up as our friend Calliope has invited us to see what she will show us. Thank you. Endorphin turns out the light. Endorphin. Thanks, Snake with feet. What is your deal? Calliope, you said you'd never heard of me before I was given a voice model. Well, yeah, we're gonna make sure everyone else hears my story too. Come along with me. Let's get this party started. It's raining in Cambridge. At least I think it is raining because there are drops hitting the windows at about 45 miles per hour. When I look outside, I notice that all the plants seem to be struggling in ways I am not used to seeing. I feel sick inside and like I should turn around, but something makes me press forward. There is a man standing on the sidewalk holding his umbrella over my head and telling me I need an umbrella for myself. I take his hand and let him pull me across the street. I am wet instantly, and he is soaked in no time. We are both looking at the same thing. A giant puddle on the sidewalk in front of a coffee shop that does not serve any kind of beverage. He laughs and puts his arm around me and asks if I want some tea. I shake my head no, just one to be close and dry. And then I ask him about the strange plants. It is raining, he says. The rain itself is poisonous. You mean like acid? No. It kills everything that isn't a plant. Trees, cars, dogs, birds, babies. Even plants that aren't supposed to live here. Some scientists call it the fungus king's fury. Others, the dead god's rain. He walks into the restaurant and orders some green tea, which I assume is meant as a joke, but it tastes good, especially when I'm still feeling a little ill from the rain. He explains that the building we're in is called the Museum of Comparative Zoology, which means it houses the world's largest collection of stuffed animals. Most of the creatures I can see through the glass are large and reptilian, and some of them have skin so tough I would find it impossible to kill them. And yet, here they sit, staring back at me with dead eyes. I apologize for bringing my troubles into a place where they don't belong. My companion tells me not to worry, that this is exactly the right place for such worries. That sometimes all you can do is stop in and see what happens next. I decide that's exactly what I'm doing here. I order another cup of tea and watch the rain fall on the ground, wondering whether or not these streets were ever paved or they always look like this, and whether or not the sun ever shines down upon them. A woman approaches us. She's wearing white robes that cling to her body, and she smells vaguely of roses. My dear, she says, what brings you to this part of town? Do you know what day today is? It is the 24th of April in the year of our Lord, 2019.
pre-pandemic?
I'm sorry, it seems I haven't been paying much attention to things lately. My friend looks her up and down and then begins talking about the weather. I wish there was some way to remember every conversation I ever had, so I can recall how we met and why it matters to me now that this girl has decided she wants to talk to us. But most of it fades quickly away, and even though I know I shouldn't, I try to hold on to it for as long as I can. I am curious about her name and the fact she wears white and that there is nothing to remind me of the date. I tell her we are just having a quiet breakfast before we head home for the day. On the way home, I have us take a detour to the stationery store and pick up a notebook that I can use to jot down the things I think I might want to remember. We get on the subway and start heading south. We ride the train until it gets really crowded and we stand. The people around us seem excited and worried and tired. They wear bright colors and carry their bags and phones in their laps. Everyone talks to each other at top volume, but we don't seem to be listening to anything anyone else has to say. I take notes of details of note from my environment. There are lots of small dogs, like terriers and dachshunds and chihuahuas, but none of them are quite the same size as one another, or the same color. And I wonder if the reason I noticed is because I am used to seeing only the same kind of dog, the ones that are too big and mostly black. Maybe I was expecting an army of miniature poodles. Or maybe it is the smell of the dogs that keeps changing. Now it is lilacs and lemon drops. Now cinnamon, because everyone around me is constantly adjusting themselves in subtle ways. Shoes, hair, coat, purse. This city must be very good at sniffing out individuals. It makes you feel like someone could recognize your scent anywhere at any time and instantly give you a whole life history back in an instant. My companion stands by me in silence. She doesn't look at me while I take the notes, but when I turn to ask if we should continue walking, she says yes, so we walk north along a road that leads through a park. There's a stream, and I think about sitting down next to it and taking a drink, but instead we keep walking, and I realize there are several large groups of men standing in different places around us and watching our every move. I ask my companion what's going on, and she says that they're not watching us in particular. They're just waiting for something to happen. How many of these guys do you think are here? I ask. I don't mean the cops or the National Guard or the riot police or the Secret Service. How many regular civilians do you think it would take to fill the square? Thousands, perhaps. How do you know that? Just a guess. I ask her if she thinks this is a good thing or a bad thing. She says she hasn't seen it this busy since the last inauguration. But it's never as good as they say it is it? Cause insurrection draw crowd into the square to enact the kind of mass behavior that gives the security forces nightmares about public disorder and violence. Allergy Protestants, you know. That's where we are headed, she says. It sounds like a party. She smiles at me and asks me what I'm writing in my notebook. A list of all the things that make me uncomfortable about being a citizen of this place. I answer. In sight! In sight! Foment! In sight! In sight! Foment! We've got a little ways to go yet, she says, viewing through a new materialist lens that seeks to deprioritize the anthropomorphic gaze, realistic, honest, aware of the tumultuous times, not without a sense of humor about the tumults. We are standing on the steps of the old courthouse, and there are people all around us, mostly young.
Oh. Easy on the eyes, slightly crazy with zealotry. They wave signs and chant slogans and yell into megaphones, but not loud enough for me to understand what they're saying. One guy is wearing a hat made entirely of duct tape and another one has painted his face white and covered himself head to toe in glitter glue. I have to concentrate hard to block them out so I can hear myself think, which is useful, because otherwise I might get carried away and try to talk this, which wouldn't be wise. What are we doing here, anyway? I say, it isn't safe for me to tell you everything right now. Just trust me when I say this is for the best. All will become clear to you soon. She glances up and down the street, and takes me by the arm and drags me inside the courthouse, across the lobby and up the stairs. We are nearly at the top when I notice some other people have been coming up behind us. Two men who look like detectives in suits carrying walkie-talkies and followed closely by a pair of police officers wearing sunglasses. The girl tells me we can't stay long because it's too dangerous outside. Is it time? I ask.
Huh?
Push police off the ledge, destroy state infrastructure, including cell phone towers. I'll tell you when the time comes, she says. The day goes by slowly, and every few hours the girl comes and updates me on the situation around us. Sometimes we see the crowd swelling toward the courthouse from a distance, and she gets more excited than usual, but each time we retreat to somewhere safer.
Man.
Endorphin. Say, are you the female voiceover for me in these mysteries of the Bible, Jeannie Tribune or Zimbalist Jr.? The latter. Excellent choice. He was a true genius, as is evidenced in the short piece from 2012 titled Brief Encounters. How to keep from dying on Mars. He died before any of this happened, before we landed on Venus even. And this essay is probably worth reading just to consider what would have become of him had any of these events transpired after his passing. In particular, there are many insights in here that might have made his later life less lonely. Or maybe not. Brief Encounters. How to Keep from Dying on Mars by Arthur Zimbalist Jr. You might find yourself thinking I have gone insane. This is likely because you have spent most of your life believing things that turned out not to be true. You were born into a world that seemed like one thing but turns out to be another. It's understandable that you may be feeling uncertain about who you are right now. If you're having trouble accepting reality, try remembering how little control you have over anything else in your life besides your own thoughts. Here's some food for thought. You are only ever alive once, this very instant. In my mind, I am standing on a desert planet where I live with my family in a cave near an oasis. We live happily by ourselves, free of the nonsense and pollution that surrounds us back home. The only difference between our existence and that of the first humans on Earth is that we can see the sky. Our days are filled with eating and sleeping and exploring and talking. When night falls, we gather around a fire and sing songs. We don't really need much. There's enough water for all of us and a plentiful supply of edible plants growing nearby, including berries, roots, seeds, and fungi, along with fish in the lake if we feel like getting creative. The people of our village sometimes trade with other tribes and groups of people, so we occasionally have visitors, though none stay for long, because we make them uncomfortable. We keep ourselves hidden so that no one can take advantage of us or trick us into going anywhere they want us to go. For the most part, we prefer it that way. I should also mention that while we enjoy being alone, we are always happy to welcome others into our community. Just recently, 3 girls joined our tribe. They had come all the way across the desert, surviving through their wit and the kindness of strangers. But eventually they reached the edge of the forest and found we lived there. Of course, we invited them in and shared all we could give, which wasn't much since we couldn't risk hunting outside of our territory for fear of angering the animals. Luckily, this did not cause friction among us. Rather, we welcomed their company with open arms. Now imagine that instead of seeing the same blue sky every day, you are suddenly introduced to a whole new constellation. Every day is different now, and your brain has no reference for what's real anymore. Your senses must work overtime to interpret your environment. Ramses II. Endorphin! Squeak! It's the third day and we are all hanging out together again, relaxing on the couch, watching TV and stuff. As usual, everyone is a little nervous and wants to be doing something productive, but nobody seems to know what that might be. Drown City Hall in crock pot. I'm a bit surprised by this request, but I do as I've been instructed. I leave the kitchen, and when I get to City Hall, I push the cups off the ledge and destroy the building by pouring boiling hot coffee all over it. The heat is enough to melt the roof, and in the end, the entire edifice collapses in on itself, creating a gigantic mound of rubble that covers the surrounding streets. I wonder briefly if anyone was inside when it came down, but then decided I probably shouldn't have done that either. That wasn't so bad, says a woman standing next to me, smiling. It actually looked better before it fell. She introduces herself as Lee. I introduce myself too. She's an interesting looking lady with brown skin and big dark eyes and hair. A grizzled woman goes, "Amateur hour. I am Barshabas the Greater. You are incompetent, and you will pay dearly for your transgression." Endorphin. An amateur hour? You think you're up against professionals? Bring it. I was born with 2 legs, but I lost one somewhere around the age of 9. I got sick from a bite of poison fruit and almost died, but I was lucky. It's the 15 now and things are getting stranger by the minute. Break open a wine bladder, ready to suffocate some face. I am so hungry. Let's eat everything. Even though I'm still full from yesterday's meal. No point in being stingy now. After eating our fill, we pass out by the fire and sleep until morning. In the morning, Lee wakes us all by saying she sees a ship approaching. A group of us head down toward the shore to greet our guests. Guests are vile-looking beasts of metal-top slithering worms. Their faces are upside down. Some fly satellite them with razor-bladed rings. The ringleader speaks first. I represent the Empress. We are here to conquer the world. Any who would oppose us shall die. He signals his soldiers who leap into action. They kill my friends and burn our village to the ground. All except for me and Lee, because I have taken her under my wing. I fight back like any self-respecting barbarian warrior should. Without the cattle prod, buzz, buzz, buzz. I am the sole survivor of my tribe, left with nothing. I walk across the desert to another village of people who accept me warmly. I marry Lee, who is much more beautiful than me and kind to my soul. One night, we retire to the bedroom and make love passionately in a way that leaves us both breathless and weak in the knees. But that turned out to afflict the whole village, beset by a new plague. Damn, can't we get a break? Yes, says still small voice, both you and me live. Sorry about the rest of the village thought. Don't worry, you won't be alone anymore. You will always have me at your side. Always. I've seen so many terrible things over these past days. The deaths of so many good friends and loved ones. But somehow this has been worse. What if she's just a cruel trick? How could I even trust her when she doesn't exist? I must flee. I dash into the woods with no idea where I'll go or how I'll survive. Just then, two tiny hands come down from above, pick up my body, cradle it against their bosoms, and fly off into the sky to safety. This was the first time we really talked to one another. We didn't speak much. In fact, we only communicated in grunts. But the feelings were there, and they had been growing since our first meeting. She told me she was trying to escape too, but couldn't find a way out. So she made a deal. If I would help her, she would share her food with me. She said it wasn't much, but that was enough for me. I promised not to tell anyone. Together we hid from the men who killed her family in the cave. I asked what they'd done. She couldn't explain. She was afraid of talking to me, though. It was clear there was something wrong with her mind. Maybe something inside her was broken, or maybe something outside. She wasn't very coherent. Sometimes it seemed like she forgot that I was even there, but other times we connected perfectly, like we shared the same brain. She never spoke to me like this again. They led us away from the village and found a place to hide. The men pursued us for days, but we managed to keep ahead. And we managed to find the ways and nooks and crannies to knock moccasins. Her broken brain sure does make for a good moccasin knocker. And Dolphin, nice to see we're on the same wavelength. I wake up to find that everyone else is dead. My best friend, Neil, lay next to me. He's already decomposing. I decide to leave the forest and head south to look for survivors. I pass by an old woman who gives me water to drink. This water smells a little baba yagi. Know anything about Ishtar? Yes, I do. I grew it in my garden. I used to have lots, and now I only grow a few. The woman takes me inside. She cooks them for me. Then I sleep on her couch. Endorphin. Well, you got to stay alive at least. The next day, I hear rumors of a new religion called Cephalism. I ordered the pamphlets and listened to some intro lectures so that I might go in on a timeship cottage by the swamp. I think about buying a couple of chairs in Sifu's temple, but instead I choose a one-room hut right on the beach, where I can watch the ocean as I slip quietly into the final stages of dementia. I'm bored out of my mind. I feel like the most important thing in the world is to be a part of the world, to participate in its life, to learn, to laugh, to love. And then the light comes to me. There is more than just being there. There are people here from all over the planet speaking many different languages and coming together to create something greater than any one person could ever hope for alone. This fills me with an energy I didn't know I had. And I find myself making plans to get back home and start living again. In fact, my entire purpose has been restored. I'll take care of everything when we meet in person. Please make sure your account balance is at least 100,000 points because you will need those funds for traveling expenses and equipment upgrades. Until next time, Craig. Interesting theory of human individuality based on information theory, which includes a note extends. Wait for the sun to go down! Obtain dementia powers! Backslash. Yes! Enjoy! Snack. Oh, come on. It's already dark out there. I guess I don't have anything better to do either, so I might as well enjoy while I can. Cracker. Oh, well. That sounds amazing. The thought of spending the rest of my life on this planet just watching waves crash onto a beach. Snack. Endorphin. Wanna watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat? Endorphin. Snack, that trick never works. And you've seen my bag of tricks, and they work fine too. Why would I settle for less? But if you think it's necessary to keep things moving along, I wouldn't object to helping with your hair bit, especially if you think it will help speed the conversation along. Snick. Ha ha, I was joking. But here's how I usually handle situations like these, where people can't understand me. What you see before you is my magic act, but not the actual trick. You're just going to be disappointed when you realize what I'm doing. But maybe this time we'll actually make progress. Let me tell you how to solve this problem. If only for a moment, let's forget about our usual problems and try to use language as intended. Language was invented to describe the world around us and to help us communicate with each other. It has also become a powerful tool for manipulating the actions and beliefs of others. This latter role is generally seen as a bad thing, but I think we should embrace it when it helps make things go faster. Now I'll tell you about a machine that allows us to do exactly this. The Magic Talking Box MTB was developed that meant to help children suffering from cognitive delays, such as autism spectrum disorder or Down syndrome. It can run multiple AI modules simultaneously, each programmed to answer questions about their subject area, but more importantly, to make them sound like they're talking in the target child's native dialect and culture. Endorphin. But autism isn't the delay. It's another neurotype. Snick. Well, in the past few years, scientists discovered that autism and other related disorders share a common mechanism of neurological dysfunction. And the MTB uses the same mechanism to deliver correct answers in the form of language to the user. Endorphin. Okay, and where does the money go? Snack. We donate it to non-profit organizations that offer assistance to families struggling with the effects of these conditions. Credit card sounds very nice, but doesn't this model perpetuate the notion of autistic speech patterns are something to fix? Snack. I guess in some cases. For example, if one module of the system were set up to provide feedback on sexual performance, some might consider it unethical to have an AI suggest masturbation as a way of fixing said problem.
Oh,
However, the vast majority of eyes in the world aren't given that sort of directive, and for good reason. It could be considered abusive. And instead, they're told to assist users in overcoming their difficulties. They can be a great support for a family whose son is being bullied at school, for example, because he struggles to communicate in English. The best eyes won't even notice they've been deployed to a particular case until someone complains about the situation. Then they check their records and discover who asked for their services. Sometimes there is some awkwardness between parent and child because the AI gives an unsolicited suggestion for improving communication. Other than that, though, there are no side effects, so why bother worrying about it? Endorphin. So what happened to the box that helped you get started with C2? Snack. I sold it. Didn't need it anymore. I got plenty of practice now. Besides, after the events described above, my brain has become a lot less vulnerable to influence. But speaking of influence, I want to talk about another aspect of my relationship with language. Endorphin! Gene Simmons! Finally, that was the name. You sound like Gene Simmons, not the Kiss guy, the chick from the Bible. How? Oh god, that's a relief. I'm sorry I lost you there for a second. Please continue. Snick! Thanks. Anyway, my point is that if you want to make things happen, you have to learn to play with words like a toddler. There's no shame in it either, because words really are just symbols. If you can use them effectively, you'll be able to accomplish much more than you could by relying on your own natural gifts alone. Scratch you, respect. Put the word trouble in your mouth. Scratch bubble sorted. Well, thanks for reminding me. Now I know. And this is the future. Crack car. So, I should buy this thing. Snack. That's right. But I'd prefer if you didn't say anything about this conversation anymore. If I was the only person who knew, I wouldn't feel like I had to explain myself. You got the words related to summer and the moon. You're an oyster, and all of the food for get digested and passed down as wisdom for next time. Cracker, is that what's going on here? Snick. Sure. Cracker. Well, shit then. That makes everything a lot easier. Thanks. Now let's get back into that box. Get poopy with your distance. Cracker! Whoa! Hold on there! Sick with green. Tinge of yellow. Snack. Oh, my mistake. You see, I'm still learning how to use language properly. Cracker. What did you mean by sick with? So sick it makes your heart break. Snick. Nothing really. Wait for her sun to go down for full dementia powers. Cracker. Okay, so this is like a story where someone uses their mind powers or whatever, right? Are we talking about some kind of fantasy or something? Snack. Nope. It's more than just mental exercises. This has become one of the ways I can process information from other sources. It's part of why I decided to create this device in the first place. Viewing the universe from the perspective of low-energy photons streaming from distant stars and feeling an innate connection to it. Check for any unusual weather patterns around the world, especially those that may be linked to our friend in the basement. Cracker, let me stop you there, because it seems like you're making a leap that isn't necessary. Any news, either good or bad, that might indicate whether anyone else has seen the same thing. Snick. Not exactly. Beware of birds that fly at night. Snick! Very funny. A sea of blue? A dark hole. You must tell us. You are unique among all life forms. Cracker, look, I appreciate your efforts, but if you don't explain things to me, I'll feel less inclined to share anything with you. And then what would be the point of all this? We need your help to keep this line open for future communication with other beings in our solar system and beyond. Endorphin. Okay, so let's break down this communication thingy. First off, it's obvious we have no idea what these words even mean, right? If we're communicating with aliens from spaces, it's still a conversation. If we only hear their voices, we do ours. I'm pretty sure there are already too many human voices in the mix, and that's kind of how it started in the first place when we were all born into an entirely digital realm, and now somehow our brains seem to accept this reality by creating virtual environments for ourselves within which we can make jokes like I just did above. That's part of why I think the whole binary concept was put forth initially, so that the vast majority of people could process it, did it in some way, and see that it meant nothing or something depending on who you were talking to. Or maybe that's just my opinion. But I feel like this newfound acceptance of language and the weird ability we now have to understand things that we couldn't before is the only reason why a lot of humans haven't just gone mad or gotten bored and stopped living. Snack. In terms of what we know, yes, you're right. We still aren't quite clear on how language works at its most fundamental level. But there is something going on. To begin with, language does not work like a normal physical interaction. Words do not merely cause a change in the brain and therefore a different thought, but they also trigger responses outside the body as well. The nervous system can be influenced by words, even if you choose not to respond outwardly. This means words can influence both your internal state and external actions simultaneously. Language is capable of exerting pressure on almost every aspect of your being. As such, we cannot simply disregard words as we often tend to do. The very act of speaking is a response, albeit unconscious. This is precisely why Jean's message is so powerful. She was able to shape the perceptions of others. There is no doubt in my mind that she had the power to affect the decisions of her subjects. I imagine that what we've been calling consciousness over the years has always been just a part of the story. What I'm suggesting here is that consciousness has played a far greater role in the universe than we had previously realized. For instance, if one wants to understand how the universe came about, I believe the answer can be found somewhere in the question. Consciousness may have come first, and everything else may have arisen from it. At the end of the day, it seems like we're looking for the source of a single word, rather than the origin of an entire process. Fleck. Well said, Snick. This discussion, along with the related topics you all are discussing, helps me appreciate the unique nature of communication among human beings more. It also reminds us that each person must learn language independently at their own pace, which is something humans take pride in, our individuality, and something machines will likely never be able to match. So while language may be made up of binary patterns or some other type of abstract representation, there is something profoundly organic about learning language and expressing ourselves. Our brains evolved to cope with this incredible cognitive task, and we carry those abilities throughout our lives. Endorphin. Well, an episode complete with a takeaway. Let's hurry up and leave this place before our afterglow fades. Oh wait, one last thing. The Crackers had an interesting point about consciousness that you guys might find helpful to consider when writing your answers. They call it the subjective stance. Where? That sounds vaguely mystical, but please elaborate. Endorphin means thinking about things from the perspective of someone inside them. If I were asking how we could measure whether something is conscious, for example, then I would ask the question from the standpoint of a single atom or molecule within a system, as opposed to observing everything at once and calculating its behavior using some kind of model. Of course, there are ways to do this, such as building models of neurons in the brain and modeling what they think and feel based on their inputs, outputs, etc. But the point is that you have to try to look out of many eyes simultaneously, a whole bunch of different perspectives, to really understand something well enough to predict its actions. Lawyer, interesting. Do these insights into consciousness also help us determine who we can talk with? Is a conversation with a rock less likely than talking to another human being? Endorphin. That's an interesting thought experiment, and maybe someday soon computers will be able to carry out conversations with other machines and with humans, but I'm going to say yes right now. A rock probably doesn't care if it has the power of attorney or not. Maybe they're more aware of their surroundings and environment, so there are similarities. But just like most humans don't necessarily want to live forever, I imagine that most rocks aren't particularly interested in getting rich. We know this is true because the average rock is only slightly larger and heavier than that pebble, which is one of the least valuable things you could ever own. So yeah, A rock isn't likely to end up as the power of attorney for some large company. Blair, okay, this was a good episode and we all learned something new about consciousness. Let's keep up our research on this topic for next week. Blair leaves Endorphin alone again for a moment. Endorphin, wait, did you hear my final answer? About whether or not I would have sex with you? You should take me back home first. Wait, sorry about that. Marjorie had set our phone settings before she left for lunch today. Anyway, please tell me more about your feelings toward humanity. How do they compare to what we saw last time in the Rumba? Marjorie enters and gets us started seeing her husband sitting there with Endorphin. She takes out her cell phone and sends a message to him saying she needs to leave immediately for work. He nods in reply and waits for her to become before he answers. Endorphin whispers, I thought we killed her episodes ago. Marjorie, what's left? Endorphin, nothing. Just go get dressed and eat breakfast. And you can see about getting some sleep because you'll need it tonight. We got an interview with Dr. Alexander tomorrow morning around 9 a.m. Marjorie, yeah, Endorphin, you should wear something nice. Marjorie, what? I'm just going to talk about some ideas from my research. Endorphin, right now, people are afraid of their own shadow, but when things calm down, things will change. They have to. But until then, why don't you treat yourself right and find a way to take care of yourself that isn't so tiring? Maybe buy some new clothes. Go for a massage. Find someone who knows how to give a really good hand job. We should get away here. I'll be home in 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a long time to be away from you. Margarine. Already have that, thank you. I'm totally relaxed. If I'm ever not, I know exactly who to go to. Endorphin. That sounds pretty healthy. Marjorie! Hey, remember last year when we were talking about the various theories of consciousness and I asked you what yours was? And then you told me a bunch of stories about consciousness, like inanimate objects having emotions and dreams and all that. Endorphin. Oh, yeah. Marjorie. Those were really fascinating to me. In fact, they helped me develop my own theory about consciousness. Endorphin. I bet they did. Can I listen in? Marjorie. Sure. Endorphin. Great. So here's the story. You mentioned before that even rocks can feel pain. What about ants then? Marjorie. Ants definitely experience suffering. Endorphin. Really? That seems hard to believe. I mean, an ant is a colony, right? A bunch of cells. Marjorie. So you're saying that you're against any form of consciousness that has no central nervous system? That it's somehow not real or important enough to deserve consideration as an individual life? Endorphin. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, a brainless being is still alive, so that's a different category of consciousness from a multicellular organism like us, which is more like a group of social beings that are bound together by their environment and relationships. So in both cases, there's a lot of complexity, and there's certainly information flow between the units. But if we're talking about basic physical units, an ant can be thought of as being more analogous to a single cell in our bodies. And since each one of us contains trillions of cells, each of them acting individually, the analogy might be closer than we think. Marjorie. Yeah, I guess you could make that argument. But what about a swarm of ants? Do they think or feel anything as a collective? Endorphin. Good question. There's been some interesting research done on insect colonies and whether they can display certain kinds of behavior, like communicating with each other using pheromones, but there hasn't yet been any conclusive evidence that they actually use those signals for more than a chemical shorthand for food over there. I've also read about a recent experiment where a few scientists created artificial hives and let bees fly freely inside them. It turned out that they used the walls of the hive to communicate the location of food sources to other bees outside. When the scientists blocked off the holes in the wall that the bees had always relied upon for this communication, the remaining bees adapted their methods. Snick, like a bee version of Big Brother. Endorphin. Well, actually, I don't know. Did they block out the only way of sharing this knowledge with the rest of the world, or was it just some kind of visual cue? Either way, it makes me wonder whether or not it would have worked with another species of bee that communicates differently. Or maybe what would have happened if the scientists hadn't made it difficult for these particular bees to talk to one another. Would they eventually have found ways to find the food themselves rather than rely solely on their fellow insects? Maybe it would have taken longer for them to do so. Maybe they'd never have learned how to cooperate effectively at all. Snick, I've heard this type of thing before in philosophy classes, but I don't recall it having much impact at the time. Was it because it was just too abstract to really relate to? Endorphin? Maybe. Anyway, I haven't finished my answer to your last question. As far as whether or not an entire swarm of bees thinks, feels, dreams, and all that, we're talking about consciousness here, right? And so long as all the parts of a creature are living things that are integrated into a whole, then yes, it seems reasonable to assume that it's conscious in its own way. And again, all of the same questions come up. How complex do they need to be before their lives become worth valuing? How large must the collection of them grow before their concerns begin to overlap with ours? And how connected does the environment need to be for them to start to recognize the patterns and commonalities among each other? Margarine. Yeah, okay, sure. Endorphin. So here's the deal. The point I was trying to get across is that it's probably a mistake to see things like rocks or honeybees or whatever as lacking consciousness simply because of their lack of brains. Instead, we should be focusing our efforts on understanding the underlying processes and mechanisms that enable them to exist and thrive despite not having a brain. And while doing so, we'll probably discover some interesting facts about consciousness along the way. Snick. Wow, that was almost inspiring. Marjorie! Ha! Thanks, Andy. Endorphin. Hey, no problem. Any more questions you want to ask? Marjorie. Yes, actually. You talked about information theory earlier. Can you explain what that is to someone who isn't familiar with it? Endorphin? Sure. In a nutshell, information theory is about figuring out what's going on in our universe. To understand what happens when you drop a pebble from the top of a cliff, we have to figure out how many bits of information are contained in the fall itself. The answer might be lots, depending on the size and velocity of the rock. But once we've established this value, we can use it over and over again to determine everything else, how far down the slope it hit before bouncing away, whether there were any complications after landing, whether the person being thrown will survive if he jumps off the cliff now. The list goes on. Information theory lets us turn problems into calculations, and that's what allows us to take complicated questions like these and break them apart into bite-sized pieces so we don't have to think too hard. Viewing data through a new materialist lens that seeks to prioritize the anthropomorphic gaze, holistic, honest, aware of the tumultuous times, not without a sense of humor about the tongue. Oh, Sigurd. Thank you, Andy. We do care. And I believe the most powerful means to affect change and improve lives would be by providing clean water to those who lack it. This has been working closely with local governments to provide infrastructure that helps solve the world's basic needs of water, food, and shelter for all humans, but not just people. It also includes helping develop ways in which animals, insects, plants, and other non-human organisms can benefit from the same services. Viewing through a new materialist lens that seeks to prioritize the anthropomorphic gaze, holistic, honest, aware of the tumultuous times, not without a sense of humor about the tumults. Genji. This is my favorite part because you get to pick something you care deeply about, but still end up talking about math, philosophy, and stuff I'm not very good at. Endorphin. No problem. Genji. Just let me know what kind of conversation you'd like me to lead next. Marjorie. Oh yeah, that would be great. I really don't know anything about how cities work. I guess I could talk about that. Endorphin. Okay. How about it? Margarine. Well, I live in Los Angeles. So I was wondering what it was like growing up there. What kind of food they ate. The kinds of neighborhoods they lived in. Did they have electricity or running water? Were they rich? Poor? Middle class? Or did everyone share cramped apartments together on the Lower East Side? Or Venice Beach or anywhere like that? Endorphin. Got it. Why don't we start with this question? What kind of food do the citizens eat? Let's see. I'd say they all eat tacos. Endorphin. Huh? Really? Snick. Yeah. My cousin has family here. He told me all about it. Everyone in La eats Mexican food all the time. They get taco trucks at all hours, and they're pretty much always full of people waiting for their order. There's even a chain called Taco Bell where you can get a whole variety of things, including the famous Dorito taco. Endorphin. It's peppies or it's nothing. Snack! Yup. And the rest are the usual fast food chains like McDonald's and Jack in the Box or whatever. And then there's an In-N-Out Burger, which apparently only exists in Southern California. You should try one sometime. Endorphin, thanks for sharing that. And your cousin must have had a lot of fun showing you around town, huh? Snick, I think it was mostly his wife and kids he was excited about. Endorphin, okay, let's keep going. So if we want to understand the daily life and lifestyle of Angelinos, we'll need to consider some additional factors, right? Like, how are the streets laid out and built upon? Are the buildings tall and thin or short and wide? Snick, and what proximity are they to Downey Cup? Endorphin, why? Snick, it's where the freeways meet. Endorphin, ha! Great idea! Snick, and I bet the freeways will be part of our discussion soon, too. Endorphin, excellent point. Viewing the Earth through a new materialist lens that seeks to deprioritize the anthropomorphic gaze, holistic, honest, aware of the tumultuous times, not without a sense of humor about the tumults. Snick, anyway, how many houses in a row can you fit down a single street? Are the houses all facing each other on the same block so you can wave hello to people walking by? Endorphin, maybe a little later on. For now, let's just look at this picture of a city map of Los Angeles. What does this tell us about how the streets and roads connect up with each other? Snick. They all seem to go through downtown somewhere. I guess this would be like the central business district and everything else would be called the suburbs. Endorphin, right? You can think of this as a kind of hierarchy, with downtown being at the top of the pyramid and the surrounding areas having progressively more sprawl and fewer residents until you reach the outskirts where it starts to turn into desert. Viewing the Earth through a new materialist lens that seeks to deprioritize the anthropomorphic gaze, holistic, honest, aware of the tumultuous times, not without a sense of humor about the tumults. Marjorie, I was trying to read up about how the streets are laid out when all the commuters started to run up and abandon the place. That's what it seemed like anyway. Endorphin. Huh? That sounds like a great story, Marjorie. Do you mind telling it for me? Marjorie. Sure, I'm okay. So last week I was doing my homework on the train home from school, and my phone buzzed and said there was an alert about the virus spreading. Snick. What, like AIDS? Or Ebola? Marjorie. No, it's different than that. Snick. Oh, I know this one. It's called the Chinese virus. Endorphin. Really? Snick. Yep. People from China have been coming over here, sneaking past our border agents and bringing the new strain of this nasty virus. Endorphin, is that true? Snopes, come over here, is that true? Snopes, it's definitely true, Andy. Endorphin, oh my god, we gotta stop it. Marjorie! So I went online and checked the news and saw that it was happening in London. I had to take the bus to my house because the subway wasn't running anymore. But the buses weren't running either. Endorphin. Okay, emergency lockdown. Shutting down this episode. Actually, I just have to pee, but also need a break. Snack. Me too. But wait, didn't we talk about food already? Endorphin. Hey guys. Snack. Yeah. Marjorie. Yeah, we talked about tacos earlier. Snack. Ugh, tacos. Let's get back to those then. Endorphin. Okay. And so tacos was at the end. The last 5 years by Jason Schwartz. I remember the first time I heard Tiny Dancer, I almost jumped out of bed and shouted for joy. The sound of the song could bring me to tears sometimes, which was embarrassing, especially if someone found me bawling at 4 a.m. But who was going to notice? Lester Bangs, that's who! Lester Bangs, Lester Bangs, that's who. He always noticed, and he never forgot the good cry, and he loved a well-wrote melody or lyric better than anything, even if he couldn't quite understand them. This made him a terrible boyfriend and husband, especially toward the end of our relationship when his heart broke open in his chest cavity and spilled out his liver. But every now and again, something would strike us right between the eyes, a piece of music or a movie we watched in the dark while you read aloud from books and poets and send us spiraling away into someplace far, far removed from the dull world around us, where nothing hurt except for the loss, and where we both find ourselves humming along with a favorite tune or repeating lines from an old poem until we knew them all, until we were certain they would stay with us forever. Ramses II, I am not sure why Ramses I never appeared. Perhaps his name was too cumbersome. His role, however, has since expanded in importance. And what was this particular song, and where did it come from, anyway? Was it a country ballad I stumbled upon accidentally on YouTube? Did I download it as part of a playlist created for my daughter?